Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week I'm chatting to filmmaker Daniel J. Pico. Hi Daniel, how you doing?
Good, Jim. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for joining me. So people know who you are and where you've come from. Talk to me a little bit about your journey into filmmaking.
Well, I grew up just outside Chicago, and in the late 80s, I got really interested in I've always been interested in movies, of course. Like I went to see virtually anything and everything every week growing up throughout the 80s. And then when I was about 8 years old, my parents got my brother and I a PXL 2000 Fisher-Price camcorder.
Nice.
And instant filmmakers. I mean, anybody who doesn't know what that is, it was like part toy, part camera. Fisher-Price made it, so it recorded the images onto high bias audio cassette tapes. And it was very grainy, black and white, recorded sound. It had two settings, indoor and outdoor, and and it had an auto shutter, so you didn't know what you were gonna get ultimately. But my brother and I made, probably over 100 movies with that camcorder over the course of, probably about 6-7 years. Just always making something, usually knockoffs of, popular horror movies or sci-fi films. And then finally, I graduated to video with, like high school and started learning how to edit. This was prior to digital editing, so I was learning reel-to-reel editing and then actual shooting film and cutting film together and splicing it together with tape and glue. And I learned all the different aspects of it. I went to film school and then, graduated and, just started working in film right away. I did a TV pilot right out of college, which was really exciting. And that was a fun experience. Not all of it was good, but it was a good learning experience. And then I did independent film ever since. I worked on as a first assistant director on many feature films. I've produced many. I've worked as an editor on a lot of movies, but directing and writing is always my first love. So I feel really good about getting back in the saddle with The Withering as my first feature since 2007 that I directed solo.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
The Withering. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So tell me a bit about The Withering. What's the pitch for it? What's it about?
Well, The Withering is about a woman who is um, diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she has a caregiver that helps her every day, and they have a close relationship. And they go to an estate sale, and they find an amulet that allows the woman who's older and dying to regenerate, and she becomes healthier, and then she becomes young again. And with that, her inner selfishness and her self-centeredness all comes out as she begins to regenerate. And she turns into a much younger version of herself, and starts to act out and starts to behave as she would if she was in her 30s again. And of course, she fires her, caregiver because she doesn't need him here, but the evidence is there that something has happened, and this woman has disappeared because you can't just disappear in America anymore. People, there's paperwork, there's a paper trail. So it becomes a kind of a pot boiler of the caregiver looking into, concerned about her client who she thinks might be dead, and who's this woman living in her house. And it turns into a body horror film because as she's regenerating, she's draining everybody else around her. So the entire town is getting sick. And as she gets healthier, people's teeth are falling out and hair's falling out. And, so it becomes this very slow withering, of the entire town till it, basically, there's nobody on the street because everybody is sick. And there's the threat that she could just pick up and go to another town and start this all again. So she's kind of an energy vampire.
Energy vampire, right? So we're in horror territory,
Yep.
genre film. Why did you pick that as the first? You said you'd had a bit of a break. Why did you come back with the horror?
Well, I had been making a lot of horror short films and I had some success in that. And I've always loved the genre, particularly Stephen King.
Hmm.
And Stephen King adaptations. I mean, my favorite movie of all time is an adaptation of The Shawshank Redemption.
Hmm.
So I've always enjoyed the Stephen King horror films, and I love that novel format where you really get into the lives of the people in the town, and you really feel like it's a lived in place. And that's something I really get from like a lot of Stephen King's writing. So that was what the film became, as sort of the homage to that. Um, and just horror in general, I think is the genre that right now I think is most ripe for being um I don't like using the term elevated because that suggests in some way that it's like bottom feeding, which I know is how a lot of the industry treats it, even though it's like the one thing that people consistently go to the movie theaters and actually see. So it's keeping the lights on. But I think it's the one genre that hasn't really been explored in the mainstream because it's always been looked down upon by the mainstream. So I think now that you have movies like Get Out and Weapons and Barbarian, I think Zach Krieger is doing some amazing work in the genre. And I think what you're seeing now is just this opportunity to explore new stories
Yeah.
in the genre and an openness from an audience to accept it. The idea of us exploring the ideas of getting old and the fear of death, and not feeling like you've fulfilled your life has been explored many times in drama. But to then combine that or heighten it with the idea of a horror film, because the emotions in a horror film get so much higher. It's I think it's just such a ripe topic to then combine that with the heightened emotions of that. I think it's just really, really it's territory that I think we're all starting to explore as filmmakers and just seeing what the possibilities are there,
Yeah.
you know.
Definitely. Loved Weapons. Big Stephen King fan myself. I think
Yeah.
the quality of the Stephen King movies varies. There are some really good ones, some really bad
Yeah.
ones, but I still
Yeah.
love the bad ones.
Yeah.
Although not happy about that Dark Tower film. That was terrible. When you think about how good the books are, that's not on, is it?
I never even saw it.
Oh, right. Okay. Well,
I just
you
said I'll
well done.
wait for a worthy adaptation. For me, it was, when I think of the great Stephen King adaptations, of course, Shawshank Redemption
Hmm.
and Green Mile. But then when you get to the more direct horror work that he did, that was adapted and done beautifully, like Misery is a four-star movie.
Hmm.
I mean, like it's a two-hander for most of the picture, and that's as good a stage play as you'll ever see, as opposed and a great film. It can be both. In fact, I'm pretty sure it has been a stage play as
Yeah, I've
well.
seen it on the
I think
stage. Yeah.
yeah, Bruce Willis, I think, did it when they did it on Broadway. Um, but yeah, so you have that. You've got the original TV version of Salem's Lot that Toby Hooper did, which was one of the big inspirations for this. I felt like the Toby Hooper adaptation was so good, even though it was for TV, it worked so well. And then you have Mick Garris's The Stand. I mean, I thought that was fantastic. I watched that religiously as a kid as it came on TV, and I thought it was so good, and it was so again, you got into everybody's lives. There was a multi-character story. You felt like you lived in that world. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to, recreate. And then I became like a little obsessive in my 40s. I've been very obsessive about it, and I've been collecting because I'm a completionist. I can't help myself, and I love physical media. So I started collecting every adaptation of everything, and now I have that. I mean, even Needful Things, as flawed as that movie could be, it even has some nice stuff in it that I still
Mm.
like. Even though that movie is, I kind of acquaint it to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh adaptation. Everything's just cranked to 11.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely. So to go back to the Withering. So, what was the budget for it? How did you raise the finance?
Well, the Withering came about because there's a filmmaker named James Cullen Bressick, and James does this program in conjunction with Cleopatra Films, and he's been promoting this um, online now, especially on Instagram. That he finances movies for $7,000, and then you have basically 4 months to deliver it, and we were planning to do something just totally no budget in Wisconsin here where I live. And I we were planning to do something, and then I just said, there's this opportunity, like $7,000 is better than no money.
Mm.
And me driving Uber to pay for the film, but we're going to shoot on weekends. I said, why don't we get that? And then that combined with a few other of my producers throwing a few bucks in, we were able to pull the whole film off for just about $11,000
Right.
all in.
Okay. And
So
what was it shot on?
we shot it on a Canon 5RC. So
Right.
it's an 8K camera.
Yeah.
And it's actually a little workhorse. I mean,
Mm.
we shot the film in 8K, so we had a lot of latitude in terms of post-production. There's great clarity of the image. And I have a secret weapon, which is my cinematographer, Jeff Silgenberg, who I've known since film school, and he works on big shows out in Hollywood. He lives out there now, and he does lighting tech work on TV shows and feature films. Like he worked on Twisters and things like that. So like he came with a real sort of approach that we can try and do a lot of the techniques that they do on bigger films, but he was going to do it all from Home Depot equipment.
Yeah.
And he was able to build a network that we had with us everywhere. He had all the lights networked. And it was he had lights that he built himself. I mean, it was an impressive amount of preparation. And then in the film, like the amulet, like it glows when it's like, hungry or it's draining people. And like while it's there doing its thing, like that had to all be wired into the whole network to be able to
Mm.
function and do it. And it was like all of it was wired into a what do you call it? A tablet. And it was really amazing what we were able to achieve for such a low budget. And also here in Wisconsin, it's not like independent film in Los Angeles where everybody shows up and they're just like, look, we're just here for the day, right? We don't care.
Yeah.
Like we're going to show up. We know we're getting paid garbage on this and we're going to deliver garbage. And I've been on those shows many times. And Around here, though, there were so many people that were passionate about being involved in something that could potentially go somewhere. Since we were working in conjunction already with Cleopatra Entertainment, or Pictures, they were they wanted to already distribute the film, so it was
Mm.
already kind of a done deal. So we knew we had an output at the end of this. So Cleopatra, in combination with James, and we wound up with a path to screening it no matter what, as long as we finished. That
Yeah.
was the big thing. So Cleopatra has been incredibly generous. Timmy Sui over there has been a huge help and a real supporter, and James has been a great cheerleader, even though I delivered the movie super late. Because 4 months sounds doable until you start realizing you have to pay bills.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I was struggling a lot through post-production because my time was getting divided between trying to make money and keep the movie going. And I was a one-man show most of it. There were people that jumped in to help out for a couple days here or there. We had our composers. We had to have two composers because there was so much music, because the film runtime wound up being just about 2 hours. So
Mm.
we wanted to make sure that if we were going to do this movie totally independently. Like, let's let it be, let's let it breathe. Let's let, characters have moments and really feel like these people so that when the energy really ramps up, you really know, like even the guy that's the you would think is like the stock character dude who's going to show up and the guy's going to take him home and then she's going to kill him and steal his energy. If that scenario happened, we want you to know who that guy was a little bit, like there was more dimensions to him, so there was no one in the movie that we wanted to have that was just two-dimensional.
Yeah.
It's a small town, everybody knows each other, so that was the fun, to be able to let the film breathe a little bit and let it be a little indulgent, just you know to let that all happen. And that's what you can do in independent film when you don't have a studio coming back at you with notes. They left me
Yeah.
alone to make my movie, and I
So
really appreciated that.
so Cleopatra, just so I understand it, because I'm bound to get questions about that. So they funded the film, you've thrown some money into it. How does that work now? So you hand it over to them. Is that a done deal? Are you on a percentage back from that? What's the
Yeah, we have a percentage worked out. The film is going into distribution July 28th.
Yeah,
It's going to be available on streamers. I know for a fact it'll be on Amazon,
yeah,
so it'll be on VOD on the 28th of July. And we have a percentage system worked out,
yeah.
where which I thought was very equitable, it was very
Hmm.
fair. They're putting the energy into selling it. From what I can tell, there are multiple streamers that are taking it. I haven't gotten firm confirmation. That was the only one that I saw on the list they sent me.
Mm.
But there's it's going to be on multiple ones. There were a bunch of negotiations going on, and then, if it does well, they said physical media.
Yeah.
And we have a making of documentary we're working on right now that sort of chronicles the 14 days of photography, uh, that led to the making of the movie. And yeah, so it was it was a good deal from the beginning. Like I said, I had been involved in many movies that had gone this route of like getting into a VOD situation and then eventually to streaming. And but I'd never been, the head figure on one of them. So it had
Yeah.
been, as either an editor or worked as an assistant director on something. Like I'd done movies like Cabin Fever, Patient Zero
Hmm.
as the first AD, and then, I'd worked on It's Just a Game as the editor of that movie. And, I'd done plenty of films that, are available. Catalyst is another one that's a really fun sci-fi movie, that I worked as an AD and consultant and co-producer on. And yeah, so there's a lot of really fun stuff that's out there in the world that I've worked on, but I finally have my name on one of
Your
them,
own
which is
movie. You've got
exciting.
your own one out there.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just drilling into this because this is just the sort of thing I get questions on. So, you got a percentage. Obviously, they're going to get their costs back for
hmm
that they've initially sunk into the film. Are they charging marketing, sales fees, all that malarkey? Or
Um, well, I'd have to double check
yeah,
the contract, but I don't believe that there's going to be heavy costs for that if
right.
they are.
Okay. Well, I'd be
As
interested to
I've
see how
been
that.
down that road, I know
Yeah,
what you're talking about,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I've been down that road where suddenly next thing you know, the booth charges are coming in from the sales agent.
Hmm.
I did this with my first feature. I did a feature in 2007 called Farewell Darkness, which was a war drama
Mm.
about a guy who comes home from Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's kind of got like thriller elements and stuff like that. But we didn't have any names in the
Mm.
movie, so we went through the route of we went to AFM, we sold the film at AFM, and like right, we got a sales agent, and that sales agent, initially seemed like a great deal because we sold Japan like first up. That was like, the movie was made for 33,000 or $36,000. So
Mm.
we had a Japanese sale right out of the gate that covered a bunch of costs with our sales agent. We even had a little money left over. I was like, okay, the kitty started. We're putting money in the bank. We're going to have this movie paid off. I put personally $24,000 into the film.
Mm.
I had stocks at one point, sold those off to make the movie. And then, uh, you know, but then the trickle started of like basically, what sales agents do is they like to take your movie and then combine it with 10 other films and sell it as a package.
Yeah.
And then they can fudge those numbers of what movie got paid what, like what was worth what in that deal all the live long day,
Mm.
and they'll never tell you. So they, according to them, like they sold my movie for $1,000 and it didn't cover the costs of his marketing and anything that. And every time my movie sold somewhere, it was the same story. It was the movie's not, I didn't get any money for it. It's costing me money. The same thing happened with my domestic distributor with the film. I had a domestic distributor that was out of Arizona, and I eventually had to threaten to sue them in order just to get my quarterly reports that they withheld for 5 years.
Mm.
And it's so, and they claimed in the end, oh, it was a negative. I said, I know people personally who bought this movie.
Yeah.
None of those things are recorded here.
Mm.
Like, so you have to really stay on top of your distributors and really make sure that they are not that they're not trying to swindle you. And because you're an independent filmmaker and you don't have any power, um they feel like they can just run roughshod over you. It's the same thing with nowadays. The version of this now is not so much whether they want to actually do anything with your movie. They just want to buy the IP.
Mm.
And that's something that I dealt with a lot. I went to con. I do a lot of movies with the 48-hour film project. I
Mm.
find it here in Wisconsin, it's incredibly fun. We just had our screening last night of our films from this spring. And I wound up winning the 48 hour film project in 2004. I was one of the winners. We went to the Cannes Film Festival. They screened my film at the Cannes Film Festival there, which was really exciting. And I just said, well, how many opportunities are you going to get to go to Cannes, in life and have a movie playing there? And at the same time, I had a TV show that was up for an Emmy. So like that I had written and co-directed. And I said, I'm going to go. So I went to Cannes, and I didn't go to a lot of the movies until like the last 2 days. I was stayed in the market the entire time. And I just walked around that market and I talked to every single person I could, every single distributor, production company, everyone that I could get in touch with. And the one thing that they all wanted was your IP.
Mm.
At the end of the day, they just think, well, if it's a cool enough movie that you made for no money, they can buy the IP and then repackage it and then have someone else remake it with a little bit more money, and then they can sell that and your movie gets buried.
Yeah.
And you signed the deal, so you knew what you were getting, So that's one of the things that you have to really look out for today.
Mm.
For people who are doing independent distribution. For a little while, independent distribution was changing. I don't know. Am I going off on a tangent?
No, no, no. It's interesting stuff, and I do wonder how that IP, especially with AI now, how that's gonna change, because nothing you at the moment, anyway, presently, anything you come up with can just be ripped off and repackaged and kind of re sent out into the world. So it's a ever changing situation.
Well, here's the thing. Um, I think that there's a big bomb coming for AI.
Mm.
And that's going to be, and I think they've already had one court case that didn't go their way,
Mm.
which is if artificial intelligence is just drawing from things, all kinds of other IP, then is it really copyrightable? And if you're going to drop $200 million on a movie that's going to have a bunch of roots in AI, like not just like, okay, we're using it to, replace people's mouths because we want to do an English dub of a foreign film, which I know they did for Watch the Skies.
Mm.
Which I said, I looked at it, and from the filmmakers, they got the original actors back to redub the film. And so there was some care and thought put into that. And I said, well, I still rather watch it in Swedish. So like this was pointless.
Yeah.
But and using it to augment visual effects, I know that Disney and Marvel are really keen on that right now. They really want to start doing that because pixel effing,
Yeah.
is the term that
Mm.
Disney uses, or the visual effects company use to describe working with Marvel.
Mm.
And they're just like, well, then we're just going to use AI from now on to do our visual effects. Well, anybody who knows anything about like doing AI shots, it's a crapshoot.
Mm.
You just sit there and type in stuff and just keep rolling the dice, and you don't have the real kind of control over it that you do with working with a visual effects company. If you don't like these little things over here, there's a guy there who's going to wipe those pixels out and put something else in its place, and he can and he will. So it's like you're seeing this sort of like augmentation, and a lot of people kind of now being like, well, it's a tool that you can use, and if you use it well, it's X, Y, and Z. But that's not what they're planning. They're planning to do fully AI generated work, to completely remove the human factor completely. And because at the end of the day, humans are an inconvenience to corporations that just want to make money. They don't care if people have careers or if there's a human contribution that could be made that makes something better. They don't care. They just want a product. You saw that mentality with Warner Brothers under David Zaslav. You know, he just went through everything was a product. He was not somebody who cared about making movies, knew anything really about making movies, at least he didn't seem to. And he just, you know, his whole thing was bottom line profit. That's it. Everything we make is a commodity. We don't care if it's good, bad, as long as it's out and people are in their asses and in the seats. Can we dupe them big enough on the first weekend before they realize it's a piece of shit? So, you know, that's their general attitude, or at least that's the vibe I got. And I think that, you know, as the corporations have now fully taken over all the studios, and now you're having this mega merger that's about to go through, you know, there's nothing stopping them from at least attempting to do it. But, you know, this is the thing that they've read all wrong. Studio executives, you know, they have junior executives that are young, but they've drank the Kool-Aid because they're there to make money, you know, and you know, go to parties. Most executives are middle-aged, or at least 35 and above, and or my age in their 40s. And my generation tends to think that new is cool, no matter what it is. If it's an iPhone, it's about this, because we grew up in a generation where these wild new things were coming out constantly. And we were always fascinated by new and better. And AI, crypto, whatever it is, it's all new and better. And they just think that's the coolest thing ever. That's going to be the future. And they want to jump on it because they want to jump on it the way that their parents or people they knew growing up jumped on digital watches, because digital watches were going to be the new thing. Or, you know what I mean? There's like all the new advances in technology always led to somebody who got in early getting rich. And I think that, and also just fascinated with it, and fascination with these new things. Young people hate AI. They despise it.
Yep.
They think that it's the, you know, it's the thing that's going to ruin their lives because it's going to put them all out of work. They don't like the way it does and way it works. And I'll tell you, you're on a film set with young people, as I was on The Withering, and a producer decides, oh, we need a prop for something, you know, or something, and they pull out an AI thing. There was a revolt on our set when that happened.
Yeah.
It was no quarter. It was, you know, that is completely wrong. We won't do this. And I just stood there. I was like, I'm glad, because I hate AI and I think it looks like dog crap. So I think that there's a reason that, you know, the arts are referred to as the humanities. We want to know from other humans who are creating things what they think is the human condition. I don't think anyone really cares to hear what a robot's version of that is.
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
What do you really care? Like, what do you really have to say about what it's like to live as, I mean, look, just, you know, simple idea. Margot's got money troubles. If that show was, you know, AI generated, nobody would believe it. No one would care about it, because at the end of the day, what does AI slop know about what it is to struggle with, you know, money troubles and have a child that you're trying to take care of and having limited education and resources? It doesn't know anything about those things. It can steal other people's experiences online and then put them into a little Frankenstein ball and throw it out there into the world. But only we connect with it because we want to know what another human being has experienced and see our experience reflected in the experience we're watching there. I don't believe that same thing is possible. And there's a real cynicism, I think, that you're seeing in the industry, where there's like, people don't know, they don't care. because that's just it's such a dismissive way to view other human beings, as like, well, they're all just sheep, so who gives, a crap,
Yeah.
and I every time I hear that, I want to scream, because I'm like, I think you have to give people more credit than that. There's just, I just don't believe that we're going to, it's one thing to have something that's impressionistic or expressionistic. Animation we accept because we know that it's a different type of art form, and yet we project our own emotions onto a drawing that is moving every 20, every frame is moving a little bit, but it's also abstract enough that we can look at that and say, that is something that I'm going to project emotions onto. It's like movies, like it's like Warhorse is an example I always use when I'm teaching film. Like horses, sure, are emotional creatures. They love humans. Like is that video that went viral of the earthquake, and the horse like sat like right on next to the human to protect them from the roof falling, which is just, it says a lot about, because horses have relationships with people and things like that. But horses don't think the same way about society and interpersonal relationships with other horses the same way that humans do. But when you watch Warhorse, Steven Spielberg, who is a master of film language, is able to get you through juxtaposition to believe that there is another horse that's his rival horse that's in his brigade, and the two of them are squaring off as they're, getting saddled and blowing, like, at each other, and that they have this deepened relationship as two soldiers, so to speak, that have gone on, and one of them is going to die, and the other is, it's like all of its projection, and it's through juxtaposition. We can project all those things on it, but we still know that's a real horse. Even if it's CGI at times, we know it's a real horse. We're still going to project onto it. If I know that none of it's real and none of it ever existed, and it's just a false representation of those things, you can tell. I saw an AI generated commercial at the movies a few months back when I saw Avatar Fire and Ice, or Fire and Ash. Fire and Ice will be the next one. No, and there was a totally AI generated commercial, and like I'm watching it and I'm like, why is this dead-eyed beast talking to me? This woman with dead eyes. I'm like, what is this? And then I just knew immediately, I'm like, oh, this is AI.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Yeah.
There's nothing genuine or human about it. Even as good as fooled as you could be by it, it's still not worth it.